Welcome back to the Record Player, everybody. As always, I am Scott. And listen, no matter where you are in Canada, when you hear a fiddle playing, you no doubt immediately think of a handful of great Canadians, one of which is with us today. She has a new album with her husband, Donald Leahy, from, of course, the group Leahy, coming in March called Canvas. I'm very happy to have the lovely and insanely talented Juno Award winner and Cape Breton's own Natalie MacMaster is with us. How are you, Natalie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent. A little rainy here, a little chilly, but we're doing well.
I-
The I mentioned Canvas off the top. Here it is, right here, coming in the end of March.
yeah.
Um,
March 17th, actually, St.
March.
Patrick's Day.
Oh, is it? Yeah, that's right. I never
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
I mentioned that from my count, this is your 16th record, I think. Your third as a duet with Donald. Um, who, because he couldn't join us today, I can safely say is the second best fiddle player in Canada. The name is he around? He's not. He's
No,
not
he's not around. He actually just left the room, but no, he has to take our son to hockey. So,
okay. I can safely say it then. Is it the name Canvas kind of tells me that this record was created a little bit differently than past records. Created during, I'm assuming, written a lot during the pandemic. Take me a little bit to how this record got put together.
sure. Yeah, Candace, the concept came when, well, first of all, we did this during the pandemic. We had planned on recording a CD, and then the pandemic hit, and we're like, what do we do? And so we bought our own studio gear, and we said we are doing this project. And it was actually a wonderful, project to have to work on at such a bleak time. We were given so much time and freedom to think and write, and it was also very freeing in the mind, like I often just get little 5-minute increments of time to do things here and there, and you can't do anything well that way. Or so this was, we had good chunks of time, and with that, we really just let ourselves like not conform to, patterns of the past. We just really wanted to open our minds and do something different and let it go. My husband would always say, "Well, let the music decide." So, yeah, I there was a few times actually it was kind of difficult. I'm like, "Oh, this should go here now." And he's like, "Well, we always do that. We always go there. Let's go someplace different." So it was very helpful to have co-producer Elmer Ferrer involved with us because he was really great to encourage us to just, extend ourselves a little more and in our thinking, especially me. And I guess this whole concept of Canvas was born in that it's like, you know what, there's no rules here, and it's just a blank, empty slate that we're just going to throw color on. It just kind of became this concept of Canvas, which as you hold it in your hand, I see the artwork, resembling that splashes of paint in the background. That's kind of the feel and the spirit of the CD.
I've said it before that I don't. My wife and I couldn't build a Billy bookcase together without wanting to kill each other. And I've asked so many people in the past. I asked Amy Skye and Mark Jordan when they recorded their album together. Um, is it is it a hindrance or is it a bonus to work with your spouse? I mean, is that something that you guys can be a little more honest with each other than maybe you can if you're collaborating with someone else?
Yeah, we can definitely be honest with one another. It's both, right? Sometimes it's hard because, especially being married for 20 years, you know what irritates each other too, right? So like if you're really feeling like, oh, I want to do this, but if I say it to him, I know he won't like that. There's that because we know each other so well. On the other side of the coin, we know so well each other and what makes us tick and what like the what each other can bring to the table, and we know how to channel each other the right way and get the most out of each other. So yeah, it's both. It has its strengths and weaknesses like anything, But I have a funny story for you.
Sure.
So when you just said your wife recounting your own relationship there, I was thinking when the studio gear was on order, and these speakers and all this were like, and the computer and stuff. Anyway, our co-producer was really recommending this console to get to house everything, and it's an Argosy, and he was like, you should order one of these. Anyway, so we ordered one, and it arrived at the music store. I went to pick it up, and it came in like 79 boxes. And I had no idea I was picking up some assembly required type gift. It was like worse than Christmas, all my Christmases combined.
Okay.
So here I am. I'm by myself. I'm in the van. I go to pick it up. These guys are hauling out piece after box, and I'm driving home thinking Danelle's personality, he does not do well with some assembly required. So anyway, I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? So I made a trip to the liquor store on the way home,
Very
back home, and I bought me a bottle of my favorite wine and him a bottle of rye whiskey. And I said, put it out. I came home and I said, I know what you're thinking, and just so you know, I've got you covered. And we proceeded to take the booze and the 79 boxes into our new studio. And it took us many hours, but we eventually finished it. We weren't too sloshy either, so that's good.
well, very smart. At least you didn't have to build it with an Allen key. That would have totally sucked.
Oh yeah, there was a couple of spots where that happened too. That it had a bit of that in a certain section. But anyway, yeah, I hear you.
Oh man, you another one of the songs on the record is called "Choo Choo," which features your daughter, Mary Frances. She's what, 17, 16, 17
Yeah,
when you recorded this.
16 recorded it. Yeah.
I know she's only 17 years old, but I mean, is this the beginning of her wanting to maybe follow in Mama's footsteps and do this for a living, or is it too early for her to make that decision yet?
Oh, she's made the decision. Yeah,
He's
she
good to go.
definitely wants. Yeah, she's if there was the best thing that happened from us acquiring that studio equipment was her taking to it and writing and recording just on her own. She just figured it out, and she is now doing her own record,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
really inspired by that equipment. And that's the greatest unforeseen gift from all of this. And yeah, she's on fire with it. She's writing like crazy. She has another tune featured on the CD called Color Theory. In fact, both those tunes she wrote in a matter of minutes, Choo Choo and Color Theory, because I actually asked her to. I knew she had a writing gift, and there was one day she was listening to George Strait,
Hmm.
a song called Ace in the Hole.
Hmm.
She was listening to You've Got to Have an Ace in the Hole. And she was talking about what a great two-stepping tune that is. And I said, you should write a fiddle tune with the same vibe. And like she listened to me, which oftentimes isn't the
It
case. But
doesn't.
anyway, she listened to me, and she came back, like, honestly, maybe it wasn't 5 minutes, but it was within the hour. She came back and she had this new creation, which I loved. I said, Mary Frances, that's a hit. So we recorded it. And then the other tune that she has on the CD is a bit of a similar scenario, but I had this one tune that I just loved, and it's the only non-original recording or tune on the record. I think it's not one of ours. It's actually there's another Scott Skinner tune on there. But anyway, my friend wrote it. Her name's Hanukkah Castle. She wrote this tune called Leela's Birthday, and I just love the tune. I said we have to have this on the CD. And what do we pair it with? And I spent probably a couple of weeks just keeping my ear open and trying to write something, and then going through old tune books and going through my old repertoire. And anyway, wasn't getting anything I loved. And I said to Mary Frances, I said, can you write a tune to kind of match this? I want it in a new key, and I want the vibe to be similar, but just a little different. And honestly, like 20 minutes later, she had this tune, and she didn't think it was very good, and I loved it. And we recorded it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear more stuff from her then. You guys have what, 6 kids, 7 kids?
Seven.
Seven, Jesus.
Mary
See,
Frances 17 and our youngest is 4.
And I have 5, and trying to get the 5 of them to do anything as a family, whether it's going camping or anything, there's eye rolls, and everybody wants to do their own thing. Mine are a wee bit older, mind you.
Mhm.
But how cool is it to have, because you guys take the kids on the road with you. I mean, you guys have them on stage with you and
Yeah.
performing, and they're a big part of the performance. Is that something that they begrudgingly did? Is that, or were they into it right away? Were they all into it right
Mm,
away?
all varying degrees. You know, we didn't start with 7 kids, obviously.
No.
So Mary Frances, when she was 4, she was learning some steps and she was seeing us on stage and she was starting to say she wanted to come on. So I remember one time I thought, well, she hasn't earned the stage. I had these, Chanel and I were both like, we're never putting our kids on stage.
Well, yeah, a
My
lot of parents say that. A lot of music parents say that.
goodness. We were so not going to do that. So she was on tour with us for a long time and seeing us do shows every night. So finally, I just said, you know what? Because she was starting to ask, can I go out and do my steps? I'm going to pause for just 1 second.
Sure.
Somebody came.
Okay.
Anyway, so I said, well, sure, come on and do your step. So she got out there, and as soon as she saw the crowd, she just held on to my leg and, and buried her head in my kneecap. Like she just was, and so that was fine. So then she was, after a little while, she wanted to come out again, and I said, "You can't come out, honey. You're not ready for it. You have to be ready. You can't just want to come out and then not give yourself to the crowd. You can't hide in mommy's knee." And anyway, so back and forth, whatever. At some point, maybe a few months later down the road, she gave it a second crack after much desire on her part. Of course, got out in the same scenario. I think she had a little purse I let her take on stage. Well, she held the purse in front of her face the whole time. Anyway, so eventually I was laughing, thinking to the crowd, and I was telling them, I'm like, you probably think I'm trying to get her out here and she doesn't want to come. It's the exact opposite. She's begging me to come, and she gets out here and she's
Yes.
shy. Anyway, so eventually I suppose she was 6 or so when she really turned a corner and went out and just was the hit of the show. And by that time, there was 3 more younger than her, and they each had a similar experience. We have had, we've always tried to make the show so that you do not have to go out here.
Mhm.
This is mommy and daddy show. If you want to come out here, we will let you, provided that you've earned your place. You have to practice. You have to listen to what mommy and daddy need you to do and do it. And if you commit to it, there's no turning back. So those were kind of the rules. And the kids learned early on they'd much rather be on the stage than having to be backstage, tidying up or babysitting babies or whatever. They'd rather be out having the fun. Anyway, so yeah, there were a few times where, you know, the kids would make the commitment, but then somebody would be like, Mom, I just don't feel well or I don't want to. I'm like, look, you don't have to go out there,
Yeah.
but you did make a commitment and you have to try and be tough. You have to try and be tough. If you're not feeling well, you have to still try and go out there. And I believe in that because I know when I would have been touring over the years, there would be scenarios where I might not be in the mood or I'd be tired or I'd actually be sick. I can remember one time I took a huge garbage can and had it side stage because I threw up just before I went on stage and I was throwing up all day and I knew I was going to throw up to the show during the show too. And I had my getaway plan planned out, to, that's pretty extreme stuff. I can remember step dancing with a broken toe. Not that broken toes are very bad, but
Yeah.
it's not
It's hard
nice.
to, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, and all sorts of different scenarios. And you realize that once you turn your mind onto something, you can do it. And it's amazing how the adrenaline wipes away your pain. It's a strange thing. And so our kids worked through all that and they realized that they're tougher than they think they are. And we don't coddle them in that way. Mind you, we don't force them on stage, it's their choice.
Mhm. The family, obviously, a big thing with any especially with East Coast music, I think. With your husband and his family, obviously all being musicians and being quite successful in that group, and your cousin is Ashley McIsaac. You've got your uncle was a musician. Mention more about that in a few minutes. But when I worked at HMV for HMV and you guys had your records coming out, we would play, honestly, whenever we played No Boundaries, we'd sell a copy or two of it every time we played it. You guys were quite responsible for kind of bringing fiddle music into the mainstream. I've always been curious, was there any pressure at all from the record company to sort of push you guys more towards mainstream and less towards contemporary fiddle music or traditional fiddle music?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I'll tell you, I have a story that's probably quite different from what people would think. You hear these, all these stories of musicians who where the record company was pushing them to conform to a certain style or music. I didn't have that experience and wanted it. That's the
Really?
funny part. Yeah, the way my records were set up were very smart. Like if you talk to people in the industry, the way I had our record contracts set up was really pro artist. And just because I had, luckily, at a young age, I've always had good people
Mm.
working for me. And that is both, by design, but also fluky too. I mean, you can't always spot
Yeah.
danger when you're new to things. And so I lucked out with some great people, but I had these great contracts set up. So I had all the control. But I always found myself, so I did whatever I wanted. I always found myself wishing that some know it all from the record company would come and tell me what to do because I was eager to try new things. I was eager to see what would happen if, we did this. Like I I enjoy the world of popular culture.
Mhm.
It's fun. I would have loved to have taken my traditional fiddle music and had a, famous uh, producer in the pop world come and, transform my music. Like that would have been so fun. Because just because you do that doesn't mean you are that or
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's music. It's
You don't have to
and
stay
for
there.
life. Like you don't wanna just conform to something because somebody said you should or because you're expected to or like I always wanted to try something fun like that and hopefully someday I will. I still talk to Danelle saying I'd love to do like just go for a pop hit. Let's just go for a pop hit sometime. Of course, I don't really have the skills to do that. My musicality is what it is, and I've been so entrenched in the world of Celtic music that I think without me even knowing it, I just kind of hear things a certain way. But I'd love to give someone else a shot at just taking it wherever they want
Well,
someday.
you've done records with vocals, and I thought you had a fantastic voice, and you've worked with people like Faith Hill, and I think I've just always wondered if there was ever any of that kind of pressure to let's take this to an area that you might not be comfortable with, and it's
Oh, no
neat to have
pressure.
it's interesting to have somebody answer it a different way.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
No, there was never an ounce of pressure for that. They just said, "Do what you do, and we'll sell it for you."
um,
Yeah.
we do a segment on our show called "I Did Not Know That" and "I Didn't Know This," and I don't even know if it's true, but is it true that you're related to Jack White from the White
Yeah.
Stripes? Yeah, see,
Yes,
I
his
didn't know
mother.
this.
Yeah, his mother came to one of my shows in the States, and sweet lady, and she came with the family tree written down on paper, and she was explaining our lineage, how it's connected. But I wish I've been asked that since at the odd time, and I wish I had like taken photos or gotten a copy of how she had it mapped out. But yeah, I don't know what we'd be, probably third or fourth cousins or something like that.
um, Growing up for me, the closest experience I think I ever had with like fiddle music was Charlie Daniels' "Devil Goes Down to Georgia." Um, then my parents moved us to Nova Scotia when I was about 9 or 10. And I remember my neighbor listening to your uncle, listening to a record by your uncle, Buddy MacMaster. And I was always intrigued by that. And then when I came back and obviously worked in the record stores and heard your music, and that's when I kind of got into that style. You got to make a record with your uncle before he passed away. That must have been a hell of an awesome experience to be able to do that.
Yeah, it was. It was. Buddy was probably was definitely my biggest influence. And one of my favorite thing that I had of his to listen to was not his studio recordings,
Mhm.
but it was this actually a copy of a cassette that someone recorded back in the 60s or 70s on reel to reel. I don't know. Anyway, got copied eventually onto cassette, and it was Buddy at the Fire Hall with John Morris Rankin. So the Fire Hall in Mabou was just that, the Fire Hall, and they would have on think on Sundays Sunday afternoons maybe or something like that. They'd have fiddle music, fiddle tunes. You go and you have a couple of pints and hear some tunes. And John Morris Rankin, of course, of the Rankin family, was playing with him on this one particular one that I loved, and I thought to myself, I learned all those tunes first of all. And as the years went on, I thought, my gosh, I would love to play those tunes with Buddy. And I ended up arranging with him, and he was quite old, like he must have been in his late 70s, maybe
Mhm.
early 80s, maybe late 70s. Anyway, I arranged with him to go to a relative, actually his niece's house. They had studio equipment, and I said, "Let's record these tunes again, Buddy." And he actually forgot a lot of them, and even the process of me, reintroducing his own tunes to him or his repertoire was really special and fun and funny. He got such a kick out of it, and we went through those tunes and went to his niece's house and recorded them and ended up. I mean, I guess deep down, I thought to myself, it would be nice to have this, well, documented for ourselves. But I thought maybe, my greatest hope would have been, oh, maybe we could actually make a CD of it. But so I didn't force anything. It just naturally happened. And sure enough, we were able to make a whole CD, and we it's called Natalie and Buddy MacMaster, or maybe it's Buddy and Natalie MacMaster. I think it's Natalie and Buddy.
I think you were first.
Okay, yeah, I think so too. Natalie and Buddy MacMaster. And yeah, I'm so thankful that I have that forever.
Well, I loved it because, like I said, that was my kind of first introduction to that was him, and then coming back as a teenager later and listening to you, I thought, and becoming a fan there, I thought it was a fantastic record. Canvas is out on March 17th, as you said, St. Patrick's Day. This is it right here. It can be found on all the usual places, every streaming format. We hope on vinyl at some point, Natalie. And of course at www.natalieanddonald.com. You will be on the road, I'm assuming at some point, hopefully coming through Ontario. We can't wait to get you on a stage that we can see you perform. Thank you so much for being with us today on the Record Player. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. Nice to talk to you.
You as well. Hope to catch up with you down the road.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thanks so much. Okay, bye.